Hello, this is Rich Morrison, and welcome to my latest edition of the Thinking Cap, where today we're going to talk about margin protection, give you a little update on what's happening with the margin protection policies from 2024. If you recall, 9, 10 months ago, had a lot of discussion about margin protection insurance for this year for corn and soybeans, why that policy seemed like a good idea. The fact that we were in this what appeared to be a 2-year downtrending market, where the markets, unless we had a crop disaster, we were going to continue to build stocks and at the world level, at the US level, and the likelihood of lower prices looked to be very likely. And so we thought margin protection looked like a pretty good program, even though the prices were down from the previous year. Looked to me like prices could continue to work lower. And so I know a lot of people that purchase margin protection insurance and are wondering how it's working right now. And so yesterday in my market report letter, I did have a couple of charts in here. I wanted to show you those and talk a little bit about them. Let me get this out of the way. So here's a picture of December corn futures right now. And I know it's a busy chart, got a lot of information on here. But the margin protection base price was set back in September last year at 509. The other insurance price was set in February. For revenue protection, SCO, ECO, that price was set at 466 for corn. You can see here as of last night's close what percentage price drop that we've seen so far. The margin protection price right now, we're down 20% from where that base price was. So just think about that. If you have 95% coverage and the price is down 20%, you're pretty good odds that you're in the money right now for a potential payment on that policy. And one of the reasons that we thought margin protection was a good idea and how it worked kind of like a put option, that you're buying this option. Not only do you have bushel protection, if the county has a disaster, of course it's going to pay. It only takes a 5% loss in margin essentially to pay. But we were primarily looking at price drop. And so given the circumstance right now, you would have to say that it's probably in the money. And we'll look at that in a minute. The rest of the policies that were bought in February, March, we're down 12.7%. So right now, an 85% RP policy, if you have an average yield, would not be in the money, so to speak, or you would not be collecting. If we get much below $4, probably would be. But just kind of shows you the importance of the higher level policies, especially in a price drop year. So this was the indemnity matrix I showed yesterday in the market report email letter. And I wanted to be able to kind of walk you through this real quick. Here's an example for Peoria County, Illinois. You could put any county right now, and if you do what I'm doing and don't change the yield, then every county is going to look pretty much the same. But I bought this policy at 95% coverage with a 120 protection factor. Some producers bought that lower in order to save a little money. Made some sense. The county yields, the expected county yield in Peoria County was 221.3. I'm leaving that one unchanged right now. I don't have any idea where the county yields are going to be anywhere in the country. So I'm going to leave that unchanged right now. The projected prices were set back in September last year, August 15 to September 14. And the corn price at 509. You can see the input prices for margin for urea, DAP, potash, diesel, and interest, as well as the fixed input costs. The final or harvest prices for those 4 inputs for urea, DAP, potash, and diesel, those were set in April. So those have already been locked in. The interest rate number will continue to be set. It will be set in October. So we've got a ways to go on that. The corn price will also be set in the month of October. But then down here in the middle part is where we do all the calculations. And so we've done the math here to figure out what the expected costs were for this particular county. And the one thing that changes from county to county, the higher your yield, of course, then the more your urea cost is. It takes more nitrogen to grow more corn. That's really the only big change from one county to another. So the expected costs in this county came up to $391.58. Those were lower than the previous year. So even though the corn price was down, the input costs were down as well. The final costs so far without interest, we don't know where the final interest number is going to be, but the final costs did drop a little bit. And so the impact of this change in costs is essentially about a 1% drop in the policy. So if you were to look at this as a revenue policy, now that most of the inputs are set, essentially we've taken a 95% policy because of the little bit of a reduction in inputs and changed it to about a 94% revenue policy. So one way to think about it. As of today, we can see the math here, what the margin would be right now. And the big difference here is this corn price dropping over $1 a bushel. We would be triggering an indemnity payment of $184.81 an acre, given an unchanged county yield, given the drop in the corn price, and as well as the interest rate where it's at today. So this is huge. And this was the reason that we bought margin protection insurance. And I've talked to so many people over the last several days and weeks that have said, I didn't sell enough corn. I still got old crop corn left, but I didn't sell enough new crop corn. And where does that leave me? Well, I told a lot of folks last September that, if you're not selling corn today, this is something you can do, at least that gets that 509 price locked in. And it uses that 509 essentially as a put option. So the matrix at the bottom of the page then is going to show, I think there's 143 boxes on here of combinations of yield in the county and final harvest price, what the indemnity payment would look like. And the green boxes are all positive indemnities. So as of today, we're down here around 410 a bushel. And you look across at 410, even at 254 an acre in the county, which has never been achieved, you're still looking at getting $16 an acre back. So point is that this policy is in the money right now, and it's working for producers essentially as a marketing tool. And yes, I would love to tell you you're going to get a 50-cent rally and be able to sell some corn, but I don't see that happening unless there's just a late disaster here, and the forecast maps aren't really showing that at the moment. So this is working like a put option. It's working like a marketing plan. Now, come October, when the final price gets set on these policies, you no longer have downside price protection. So at some point, we still have to market the bushels, but at least between now and October, the margin protection program is providing some help. And right now I'm looking at an average yield in the county. I don't, again, know where every county is going to end up, but you can see that you'd be protected up to close to 480 corn if we came in at an unchanged yield. And that was kind of the number we'd used coming into the year, that 95% of 509 was roughly about 480, 481. So we know that already. So feel good about this. If you'd like to see some counties, check with me, check with your agent. We can print this sheet up for you. Soybeans, beans a couple of weeks ago had dropped a percentage-wise more than corn. That's not necessarily the case yet here this morning. However, soybeans from the margin price at $12.95 have dropped 15%. The revenue protection policy only down about 5% right now. The one thing about soybeans this past year, and I remember having this conversation with a few folks, that historically the corn price, locking in the corn price early is good, especially in these downtrending markets. Beans haven't seen the same seasonal tendencies that corn have lately, and that's mainly because of the Brazilian crop being so big now that we don't have that annual change in price like we used to. However, this year, because of the growth in Brazilian stocks, U.S. stocks expected to be up because of more acres, it looked like a good year to be able to participate in margin protection insurance. And right now, this policy is working for you as well. And here's another example of that. As of last night, we closed at 1097. Now, the one thing I would tell you about beans that makes beans more so of a revenue policy is you don't have urea in it. And so if you look at the impact of these expenses, your expenses just aren't as big in soybeans, and the majority of it is fixed. And so the change in final cost was only less than 30 cents an acre. So it's negligible, I would say, at this point. So you're really looking at revenue, you're looking at county yield, and you're looking at price. And if I assume right now that the county yield isn't going to change, I don't know where it's going to be. A month from now, I might have a better idea. but because of the drop in the price right now is why we're looking at potentially getting a payment. And right now we're $101 in the money, so to speak. So that's what's going on in the beans. And if you look down at $11 beans, you know, at 110% or 70 bushel yield in the county, it's still paying $15 an acre. So again, we've got some moving pieces to the policy, as we do with every policy. But the reason I wanted to show these today is to show you that, you know, if you're fretting about the fact that you don't have enough crops sold, I get it. But at least if you've got this policy in place, and even ECO with 95% coverage is probably getting into the money now. You know, if this market goes down much more, then we know we've got some protection from those policies on the revenue side. And so we'll continue to update this. I'll talk about it at our aftermath meetings, but I wanted to at least get these out and kind of share some thoughts with you. Hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you again real soon.